All right, as I was just putting those stuff back on the shelf, I ran across this, and this is actually something I'm surprised I don't see more on YouTube, so I thought I would share it. Before I do, I have to say this is not my idea. I saw this on a YouTube video like 9 years ago. I have no idea who it was. I'd be happy to give credit to whoever it was. It wasn't Matthias Wandel or John Heitz, best I can recall, but I saw it and I copied it, so no plagiarism here. I just don't know who to cite. Okay, so anyway, a lot of folks, when they mix up epoxy, they'll just kind of pour it on the bench. Sometimes guys will take painter's tape and build themselves a little painter's tape platform so they can peel it up and throw it away at the end. I've done those things, and I can say this is an absolute game changer in terms of waste and mess and just keeping your sanity. So anyway, basically take yourself a block of wood. This happens to be a piece of 3/4 inch plywood. This is like 8 years old now. Get yourself a Forstner bit. This one happened to be 7/8, but bigger would be fine, smaller would be fine. And drill yourself some holes without going all the way through. You don't need that anymore. Then when you go to mix up epoxy, depending on the batch, of course, I use Dixie cups as well for really big batches, but most of the time you don't need big batches. I'll basically just pour and fill, half and half, and then, you mix it up really good. You hardly get any waste or spillage, and then I made this little piece of metal just to have like a little flat spoon, but whatever, you get the point. Use a Q-tip or a drill bit or a popsicle stick or whatever, mix it all up really good, and then you use the epoxy for what you want to. You put your little stirrer back in place and you let it dry. And basically it has several advantages. For one, when you pour the epoxy out, it doesn't spew and spill all over the table. It keeps it all contained in one little cup. And again, the way I've used epoxy primarily, except for when I'm doing canoe repairs, is you need a relatively small amount. And then you can also just pick this up and go put it on a shelf somewhere instead of having all that exposed epoxy all over your workbench or whatever. And then you just move on from cup to cup as they fill up, because there'll be a little bit of residue, and eventually these cups will get full with old hardened epoxy. And then what you do every once in a while when they're all full is pull back out your Forstner and just re-drill them out, get rid of the old epoxy, and keep on going. And then same thing with this. As this builds up with a little bit of residue, you just chip it off with a utility knife. It doesn't adhere that well to the metal, especially if the metal's not perfectly clean. So again, I saw somebody else do this. I thought it was a fantastic idea. I started doing it. Years later, I realized I wasn't seeing any of my favorite YouTubers do the same. They always put down, a plastic baggie or painter's tape to mix it up. So if you do anything with epoxy in small quantities, really handy. And if you use epoxy in big quantities, I just use Dixie cups. So I hope that helps somebody. If not, give this a thumbs down and go check out a guy named Frank Howarth. Fascinating guy. He's an architect, woodworker. He puts an insane amount of effort into his videos from an editing perspective. They're beautiful. Love that guy, and hope you will too. Take care.